If you're listening to this video, you're going to get some more information about how this assignment is going to be graded and some examples of what makes a good news reflection assignment and what makes a bad news reflection assignment. So that way you can turn in your best version of this assignment. All right, so the rubric, you'll get 1 point if you include the name of the story and the source. Remember, the source for this one is just going to be NPR. Make sure that you write a clear reflection with specific details, names, places, terms that are used in the news story. That's just to make sure that you actually paid attention to it. So as long as somebody who didn't listen to your news story kind of understands what you're saying, you're good to go. So you might want to write in complete sentences, try to avoid bullet points. Make sure you use specific names instead of he or she, especially when you start introducing that person, or if that's the first time you talked about that person in your reflection. All right, and then the student reflected on how the story might affect their own lives or the lives of others. I think that one's going to be better explained by just going over these examples, especially because that's the main part of this assignment is your reflection. Okay, so here are 2 good reflections and 1 bad reflection. We are going to pretend that the people who submitted these reflections all listened to the same story, and that story was talking about how the pandemic has caused more people to work at home, and businesses are thinking about offering more work remotely or work at home positions even after the pandemic is over because it's saving them lots of money. Okay, so that's just a pretend news story. So that way you kind of have some context for these reflections that we're going to go over. So here's an A+ reflection. It says, after listening to the news story about an increase in businesses offering remote work due to the pandemic, I feel hopeful about the future. This is a really good introductory sentence because it tells me as the reader what your news story was about. I think it would help lower unemployment because people who might not be able to have a vehicle and get to work could still have a job. It will also save businesses a lot of money, which means that they could hire even more workers or they can give them better benefits. A major downside is that people might not be able to get to know their coworkers and could feel isolated and alone, which could lead to higher rates of depression in workers. So the rest of their sentence or their reflection, they're talking all about I think it could affect people like this. It could be good for people who don't have a vehicle. They can still have a job, but it'd be bad for people because they feel more isolated. So even though they're not talking about their own lives, they're talking about the lives of the American people in general, and that would still count as an A+ reflection. All right, here's another example that's presented in a different way. So they listen to the same story. I personally would not like to work remotely. As a student, I have a really hard time staying focused when I do my distance learning at home. When I'm at home, I tend to be in relaxed mode, even though I have a lot of things and assignments to do. When I'm at school, I feel more productive because I'm in a whole new environment. Even though I have friends at school, I still feel more focused. I feel like if I were to work remotely all the time, I would not be as productive. Also, if I needed to ask my boss a question, I would feel much more comfortable just asking them in person instead of having to type up a whole email about it. I feel like working face to face would be better suited for me. This one's still really good because they go kind of in detail and you can tell this person's thinking about, what if I had to work remotely instead of just talking about how it's affecting everybody. They're kind of focusing on themselves, and that's okay. As long as you're talking about how it would affect you, like this person said, I would not be as productive if I had to work remotely. That's good. And of course, they have good details. Their introductory sentence tells us exactly what their news story is about. All right, here is a D+ reflection example. This story was about how businesses are going to let more workers work from home. It makes me feel good. I think I would like working from home. My parents work from home. They really like it. Sometimes they get frustrated, but I think they would rather be at home than at work. So this one, their introductory sentence kind of tells us what their their news story was about, but the rest, they're just kind of talking about their feelings, I guess. Does that make sense? Like they just say, This story makes me feel good. My parents like working from home. And they don't really have much detail after that. They're not really talking about how that might impact or change their lives. He's just talking about whether they like or dislike it. Okay? If you have any questions, or even if you just want me to check your reflections before you submit it, go ahead and just email me a copy of your draft, and I will be glad to tell you whether you are good to go and you can submit, or if you need to add something or change something. Remember, you can contact me via email. You can also text me anytime. Good luck, and thanks for checking out the example.